Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, giving you the edge you need to get into the colleges of your dreams, with your host, Steve Schwartz. That's me. Today, we're talking with Shri Subramanian.
Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, Shri. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for being on the show. Now, you've got a really exciting background. You're the daughter of a college dean, and you've spent over 30 years on college campuses. And you're also a mother, and now you're with Volv, and you're hoping to give young students the tools to make for a successful college application. Tell us a little bit more about you.
I have been on college campuses, like you said, for 30 years. I've lived in and around college professors, and I've seen, my dad was a dean, and I've seen admissions processes from the inside. And really what has happened in the last few years is I used to work at Oracle in building their talent management products, and what's happened is I've come to realize that there is a real opportunity to help our high school students with some of the things that are nebulous but really will help them understand not just how to apply to college, but how to do that same thing in their life over and over again, because it's not just college application, it's every job application, it's every time you look for an opportunity.
Sure, absolutely. Can you maybe take us to the moment in time of a particular student that you've helped walk through those steps, a moment of inspiration or a light bulb moment that you've seen a student experience?
I would actually go to a college admission story that's my own. It's been a long time. And this is actually my grad school application story. So I was doing my undergraduate, and right from the time I was in 7th grade, I was sure I wanted to be a physicist. I was just, I was a real nerd that way. And I went to a college. There wasn't a good physics program available to me. So I went to an engineering school and I did engineering in undergraduate, but I did have a path to physics from there. I knew I could go to grad school in physics, and I was reading physics textbooks and reading a lot of popular science books. And what is interesting that happened is that I was in my junior year, the end of my junior year, and I read this book by Roger Penrose. Roger Penrose is a famous physicist, and he's written a book called The Emperor's New Mind. And I read it, and the fortunate or unfortunate thing is that the book was not about physics. It turned out to be about computer science and human mind and artificial intelligence and the capacity of computers. And I was smitten. I just was taken by that book. And for a while, I was conflicted because I felt like I was married to physics and I was having an affair with computer science, really. And finally, I decided to apply to computer science. And this is all the background for the real problem that I had. I'm at the end of my junior year. I'm a few months away from my application. I've not taken a single computer science course. I have no internships. In fact, I don't even know the subject very well. And I want to apply to computer science. How is somebody going to give me a chance? Like, what is it about me that's going to make them want to take a bet on me?
Yeah, sure. You didn't really have the background. It seems you just had this, exciting, inspirational experience, reading this book that wasn't even in the area you were necessarily expecting it to be. Is that right?
Yeah. And so it took me a while to wrap my head around the fact that I wanted to do it. But when there is a will, there is a way. And so that summer, I found an engineering lab where a physicist I knew was working. I got an internship and I did some programming. And then I studied for the AGRE exam, which is kind of like the subject test or the AP exams that we take in high school for computer science. And I was so focused that I scored higher than any of the computer science majors in my college.
Oh, wow.
And
that's great.
Yeah. And then I wrote an essay that showed that I really wasn't a complete nutcase, that this was a thoughtful decision on my part, So altogether, what that told the college is, here's someone who obviously reading their essay seems like they've got a real interest in the subject. They're able to express why they're interested and how they're interested and what they know about the subject. They have done some internship in this area. They seem to have scored really well on a subject test, so they have some grounding in the subject. And so that together made a really good case. And I ended up with a full ride at 4 universities that were amongst the top 25.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. 4 that were in the top 25. That's a huge success. That must have been, really against the odds, considering, it hadn't even been that long prior that you were not even too familiar with this field.
Yes. And that's why I feel like, the thing that is there is if you really want to do something, there's always a way to do it. That it's not going to happen unless you really want to do it.
There's so many valuable insights here, Shreya. I want to unpack it a little bit, so let's recap here. You read this book, it happened to be about computer science. You then go out and you find a professor to do research with, right? So could you walk us through the steps that led you to get that research assistant position? Because it seems like that was kind of a pivotal moment there as well.
Yeah. So you're talking about at grad school, the research assistantship at grad school, or the one that I did in summer?
The one that you did in summer that was more immediately after reading this book.
Yeah.
So it kind of set you on your path.
Yeah. So I think the key thing over there was I knew what I offered. What I offered was that I had a passion for physics, and people who knew physics and understood that could understand where I came from. They really saw me as a smart person. So my entry into that internship was through a physicist. I went to this physicist who was working in a lab that had some, computer jobs and so forth. And I said, I really want to get this job. So you really have to kind of play up the things that are whatever leverage you have. And that was the leverage I had. I had this leverage that I was seen as a smart person by people who were in that field. And I knew people in that field who were working in different places. And I could go to them and say, give me this lowly computer programming job that nobody wants, and I will do it. And it didn't matter to me how much I was earning. It didn't, I was just really easy on everything else. I just said, I want this opportunity. I want to be able to do it. And I was upfront about the fact that I really don't know a whole lot of computer science, but trust me, I'll learn it. And the only reason he was able to take me on that trust was because he'd seen me in a different area and a different field and knew that I was a fast learner and I really was trustworthy and I was going to do it. So really leverage the skills that you have to open up doors to opportunities you don't.
So it sounds like you leveraged the network that you had in the physics field, and you communicated your excitement to people you knew within the network you already had. And you said, hey, I'll be humble. I don't know anything about comp sci. I just read this book. I'm excited. I'm passionate. Give me a chance. I'll take the lowest rung on the ladder in comp sci to prove myself and gain that experience. It sounds like you would have even been willing to sweep the floors there if that's what it took to get into the lab, right? You just needed that little entry. You needed them to take a chance.
Absolutely.
And you leverage the people you knew. So what if they're physicists and you want to do comp sci now? They might know people, right? And they can get you in the door.
Exactly. And he got me this internship in this place. And once the internship started and I started doing things, then I could, open up more doors inside there. And I could say, hey, I know you hired me to do this, but, I've already done that. You had a week for this and I've done it in 3 days. Now, can I do something more interesting? So you just keep building on what you have until you can build it up to something that's the best that you can in the time you have.
Well, that's really exciting. I mean, you had so many successes along the way. I'm wondering if there were any roadblocks or obstacles or kind of worst moments that you experienced on this journey. Can you maybe share with us one of those, and then we'll get into some of the lessons learned?
Absolutely. So like I said, these are not just college admissions. These are every time you're looking for a new opportunity. And that could be when you're asking someone to join your team, when as a startup, when you're going out for funding, when you're applying for a job, and so forth. And so I want to talk about this one moment I had. This was back in 2001. And that's when the dot-com burst had happened. And I had a little baby who had just been born December of 2000. So you know how young she was. And the company I was working for was really sinking. And I was out there interviewing, trying to get a new job. And I got an interview from Sun Microsystems, which was, it doesn't exist now, but it was really the Oracle or IBM of the time. And it was attractive to me because it's a big, stable company. I have a baby. We've just bought a house. We have a huge mortgage, and I needed something stable. And I went for the interview, and I was a shoo-in. I mean, I had exactly what they wanted. So by the time the third person on the panel was speaking to me, they had kind of made their decision, because after that, everyone was just trying to sell the job to me. They weren't really interviewing me. But I also realized some other thing, which is that I was not going to learn anything at that job. I was just going to use some skills that I'd already gained. What they were working on, the projects they were working on, they were good people, but those did not interest me. So whatever I could learn didn't seem interesting to me. So I'm sitting at the interview really trying to figure out, I have this job literally almost final, and I need to convert this into an opportunity that actually makes sense to me. And so when the last person came in, he didn't even, he skipped all the formalities, and he just asked me, he said, what do you need? What can we do for you? And I started talking to him, and within the first 5 minutes, it just slipped out of me. I just said, what's the policy for transfers within Sun? And he told me, I'll find out and let you know, and he walked me right out. And I never heard back from them. And I have had so many interviews that I've failed. I have had so many applications that have never actually turned into an interview. But I have to say that this was the worst, where you have it in your hand, you can feel it, you can grasp it, and then you basically throw it away. It didn't slip out. I threw it away.
Well, I mean, what do you make of that?
I think the thing, it took me a long time to kind of first to accept it, and then to kind of figure out what it meant for me and what it meant in general for how I would deal with situations like that. And really the lesson that came out for me was, don't waste your time and other people's times on opportunities that you truly don't care about. Because one of two things will happen. Either you will not get it, or you'll end up miserable after you get it.
That's a really valuable insight here. I mean, the idea that you could have gotten this job, but it wasn't the right fit.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the parallel for colleges. I mean, people look at safety colleges a lot of times. I even don't like the word safety. They look at it as, what is the college that would just take me because I'm too good for them? And it's just the wrong way to approach it, because if you don't want to go there, then it's not the right college for you anyway.
No, absolutely. It's almost like I'm almost going to make a different analogy for a second, which is like, let's say, you're single and you want to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but you can't get who you really want, so you're going to settle for someone who you don't really want just to not be alone. Maybe it's better to be single for a little while and keep looking. So let's say, you're applying to colleges, apply to where you want to go. You could apply to, one that's, a target school or one that's a reach, but you could also take a gap year if you don't get in anywhere. You don't necessarily want to apply somewhere you wouldn't really be happy. And yes, just like you kind of mentioned at this interview, what are my options for getting in the door and then transferring? Transferring within college, from one college to another, isn't always so easy and isn't always the right path. I'm not saying it's never the right way to go, but a lot of times it's also not the best way to go go somewhere and then transfer at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of people start thinking about backdoor ways to get somewhere too early. And I think some of it depends on personality too. I have two friends who have, one has a son and one has a daughter, who are both in that time where they're starting to think about college. And the girl has a 4.0 GPA. She's been like a straight A student throughout and so forth. And then she kind of, there was this one AP course she took in her junior year that she didn't do too well on, and she got a B. And she is so underconfident that she's already talking about, hey, maybe the way to get into my top colleges is to go somewhere where I can do a 2+3 or 3+2, whatever. I can go to another college that has then a program with this other college and so forth. And the guy, he's a good student, but he's not a 4.0. He's not a straight A student. He is so confident. It's almost like, they should be so happy as to take me. And I really feel that the attitude you bring to things is going to also somewhat determine your outcome. So instead of really always starting to think about what is the backdoor way, what is the way that I can get, it's sort of like exactly what you said. I mean, you don't start dating the person you don't want to date just because you want to date their friend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're kind of wasting your time and that person's time. Instead of holding out for what you really want and pursuing what you really want, or seeking a different opportunity elsewhere.
Exactly. And I think there are a lot of, just because a college will take you easily doesn't mean that it's a good or a bad college, but really thinking about that fit and finding out and then going after the colleges that are a good fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even want to take it back to another level, which is how you spend your time with extracurriculars and with classes too. Like, you might have a couple of different options for extracurriculars or internships, jobs, what have you. If you take on a job or an internship that you end up not really liking, or they tell you it's going to be, a lot of filing papers and pushing boxes. Or I actually had this personal experience. I was looking for a summer internship when I was in high school. A law firm offered me a job, but they were upfront and they told me I'd be loading and unloading boxes as they moved from one office to another. And yes, it was at a law firm, but was that my best summer opportunity that I could be passionate about and impress them and have something great to talk about in a college essay or a resume? Probably not. Better to do something completely different with my summer, even if I didn't know what that other thing would be yet, than to commit to a path where I'd be miserable and wouldn't get a whole lot out of the experience.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we see a lot with students in high school these days is overcommitment. And that overcommitment happens because when they don't have something, they just commit to something else.
It's true. I mean, you have only so much free time to spend on things outside of your schoolwork and your grades and your test prep, SAT, whatever. You want to make the most of that additional time. And so being upfront about what you want to get out of an experience, or making sure that even if the initial entry is, not exactly what you want, you've got to be clear about your expectations and goals with whoever your manager or supervisor is, and say, I really want to get from the entry level point to this future point, are there growth opportunities here?
Absolutely. And then follow it up by showing them how good you are.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're going to move those boxes really, really fast so you can get to the next thing.
So to say, if I prove myself within these first couple of weeks, first few couple of months, what's the next step after that?
Exactly. And that's how everything is built. Everything is built one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Really valuable insights there, Shri. Thanks so much for sharing these. I want to shift gears now, move into my favorite part of the interview, which is the lightning round. I'm going to ask you some rapid-fire questions. You give me some rapid-fire responses. Are you ready?
Sure.
Great. What's your number one piece of advice for the college admissions process?
I'll go back to what I said. There are some key skills and habits that lead to success. Perseverance, understanding risk, having clear metrics, etc., etc., etc. So this is the first time that you or your student is going to need these skills, and the student probably doesn't have them, but do help them learn the skill. Hold their hand, but let them walk, because if you do it for them, you may succeed at admissions, but you'll fail in life, or they'll fail in life.
Absolutely. So true. Guidance is important, but at the end of the day, it's up to the applicant, the student, to take those necessary steps. Really important. Thank you.
And the other side of just asking them to get up and walk on their own and do this on their own is also not the right approach. They need that scaffolding. They need that guidance. They need the things around them to support them.
Sure, absolutely. Advice is always useful. Guidance is always useful as well. Could you share with us one habit that you believe contributes to college admissions success?
Demonstrate who you are. Because when a student gets low grades because they forgot to turn in their assignment on time, or if a student is really interested in music but will never play for anyone, colleges can't know who they are or how good they are.
Exactly. You've got to show the skills that you have, really showcase them. Could you share with us one online college admissions resource that you absolutely love?
Oh, I love the Big Future College Search Engine. It's the one tool that I feel is absolutely needed by every student from all walks of life.
Definitely. Really valuable resource. We'll link to it in the show notes. What's one book that you believe no college applicant should be without?
For applicants, I will vote for the FISC Guide, which is now available as an iPad app.
Absolutely. Great book, great resource, tons of tips in there. So what are you up to these days, Shri? What are you working on? What's next for you?
So we're working on this startup that we talked about, which is really the Khan Academy. What Khan Academy has done for math education, we're doing for college admissions, basically. So it's a free phone app that basically breaks the entire college admissions process down to bite-sized steps that are really easy to follow. So it provides that support, that scaffolding that we've talked about. And we've found that students really love it. And before your audience starts calling me and asking for access, it's available to schools. So if you're interested, connect us with your counselor and we'll get it to your school. It's open to all schools. And if you don't know your counselor, this might be the greatest opportunity for you to connect because you're going to need to know them.
No, absolutely. Guidance counselors are so key. The sooner you get to know them, the better. Volv sounds like a great resource. Tell your guidance counselors about it. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. Shri, thanks so much for joining us. Where can folks find you online?
At Evolving, which is evolve, EVOLV.NG.
We'll link to that in the show notes as well. Shri, thank you again. Take care.
I wanted to give you guys a few quick tips on starting your college essay because I've been getting some questions about getting over writer's block and finally choosing a topic. Writing college essays is really, really hard. I spent months thinking about college essays, but felt like I was getting nowhere when it came to actually getting started. I mean, it's not easy to start writing a college essay that's supposed to show admission officers who you really are. One of the most effective ways I found to help students finally start their essays is by telling them not to start at the beginning. Instead, I recommend using a strategy called free writing. It's pretty simple, kind of stream of consciousness. You just write down any random ideas as they come to you. Then you figure out how to connect them and edit them later. So if you think of something, anything at all, that you think might work well for your essay, just write it down. Don't think about whether it's good or bad, or whether it'll work or not. Just get it all down on paper or on the computer. I've seen so many students write the best sentences of their essays only after they do a lot of free writing. And when you write, you can use any style that works for you. Bullet points, an outline, or even just a word or two. Another strategy that really works is to use writing prompts. They're really a great tool to help you get started and make it a lot easier. I don't know if you've ever done Mad Libs, maybe as a kid, but it's kind of similar to those. For those of you who've never used writing prompts before, I'll just give you a couple of quick examples. They could be sentences as simple as, I enjoy learning about X because Y. Here's another one. A global issue that excites me is X because Y. I know these might sound kind of lame, but really, don't knock it till you've tried it. Doing a bunch of these can really help get your creative juices flowing. So I've put together a ton of writing prompts and also some lists of questions to get those juices flowing so you can finally get started with your college essay. These tools can really help you if you're having trouble getting motivated or if you're unsure about what to write about. These are just some of the resources I put together in a premium course to help you write effective college essays. You can get access to all of these resources and sign up for the college essay course at collegeadmissionstoolbox.com/essays. Thanks for listening to College Admissions Toolbox. Head over to www.collegeadmissionstoolbox.com to get more free tools and resources that will help you get into the colleges of your dreams.